So there are always layers in terms of where everybody is going to be successful, but these guys are going to be successful in slightly more complex industries where you are going to have very complex inventory, the matrix type of inventory. That's where these guys really shine, and that's why you will see a lot more logos and chemicals and pharma.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. And for today, we have a solution from the supply chain community. It's called Logility. Before we dig into that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. Andy, do you want to go first?
My name's Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for all types of manufacturers and wholesalers all of my career. I've worked all over North America, and I also teach people how to uncover the truth about ERP software before they buy. I don't know if you all know this, but according to the Wall Street Journal, 73.8% of all companies don't like their ERP, and that embarrasses the heck out of me. So I try to help people and direct them to the right systems so you don't make that mistake right off the bat. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, amazing. And that is fairly accurate, I would say. Dave, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders to help them optimize their operations. I come to you with more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles throughout manufacturing, and always excited to be on this panel. So thanks for having me, Sam, and good to see you guys today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Shrestha, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name is Shrestha Das, and I'm part of the marketing team at Elevate IQ. And I'm super excited to be here today.
Okay, amazing, guys. So quickly about myself, Sam Gupta, Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We typically try to utilize them as part of our review. So they are super helpful for us. On that note, I am going to start with the quick briefing of this solution. And Dave and Dee, I know that you guys have reviewed a lot of different supply chain solutions. So obviously, this is part of that supply chain suite that we have been talking about. So I'll recap that. Okay, how the supply chain suite differs from your ERP suites. I think that is the distinction that we always talk about whenever we are reviewing any sort of supply chain suites. So overall, from the supply chain suite perspective, they are going to be slightly more retail focused, wherever you are going to have a lot more supply chain involved. In those industries, the supply chain suites matter a lot more than the other industries. The ERP suites are slightly different. The kind of architecture that they follow, the kind of design that they follow, in general, they are not going to have all of the components. Especially if you talk about those pieces such as your external supply chain, they are not necessarily relevant for companies that might not be as happy with supply chain. So in general, if you look at the number of pillars that we have as part of your supply chain suite, so one perspective is that you are going to have 3 different pillars. One is going to be your the whole planning component, and then the second is going to be your execution component, and third is network. So the planning is going to be your SNOPs of the world, then you have execution, which is your WMS, TMS, and then you have the network, which is going to be the network that you bring with you along with the tool that you might have in your portfolio. So there are a lot of different solutions that are very similar to this, but they all are going to have different capabilities. So Logility, they are going to have just the SNOP capability. They are not necessarily heavily sweet. Even though if you ask them, they might say that they are also sweet, but they are not going to have all of those capabilities that you are going to find with the larger supply chain sweets in general.
But the
So
fact that they're in the food business, maybe sweet, they're talking about candy.
yes, there is a very high chance that they are doing supply chain for candy business. And I'm okay using them as long as I get candies for free, Andy. That's what I care for.
Well, I tell you, one of my customers, you probably Dave probably doesn't know this company, but you know Purdy's chocolates.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, in their boardroom, whenever you're having a meeting, usually people will have donuts or cookies or coffee. They always have chocolates right there.
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I mean, how people are going to react if somebody consumes too many calories.
Oh man, I'll tell you. When I first started visiting them, that's where I gained all my weight. It was just I stay away from them now.
I move all those meetings virtual, Andy.
Somebody's gonna call for HR and they're gonna, okay, how about health and benefits here?
Yeah, there you go.
They're not just sweet; they taste so amazing.
I know.
Purdy's
I'll
is
be
like
eating
top of the
whole
line
day.
in Canada. By the way, Dave.
All right, guys. So let's keep moving. Thank you so much for the joke.
I'm
Andy,
sure
that's
Saresta knows all about Purdy's, right? Every woman does.
Yeah.
You have to describe the joke, Andy. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
come
lost.
on, okay,
I don't know.
hey,
Maybe Dave knows about it.
Every mall across Canada has a Purdy's retail store in it, and right around Valentine's Day or
Yeah.
those kind of special days, there's always a huge lineup of guys buying gifts for their girlfriends or wives at the last minute.
Okay, so that's where it is coming from. So now you know, Strasta, right?
Yeah.
She knew what I was
what to expect for your gift, I guess.
Every woman knows Purdy's. Let's put it that way. In Canada, Dave. I mean, in Canada.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So let's go.
Anyway, sorry for getting us off topic.
Amazing joke. Okay, so here, Logility, obviously, this is the SNOP solution, and we have reviewed a lot of just the SNOP solution. They are going to be slightly more best of breed. The only thing they are going to have is the SNOP. Generally, you are relying on other add-ons to be able to fill up, all the other capabilities that are going to be part of the suite. Now, depending upon your goals and depending upon the architecture, depending upon the industry, whatever you may care for, each company is going to have very different need. But let's say if you're looking for best of breed SNOP, this could be a great solution in general. So their background, even today, if you look at their financial statements, and this is a public company, so they do have their financial statements, and their background was very much into ERP consulting. In fact, they still have some of the ERP customers. As of today, they are serving as the service business. Can you believe this? Now you have some of the competing technologies. So obviously we have reviewed pretty much everything here that is probably mentioned.
Yeah, we've looked. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious who the competitors are. They're the same competitors for everybody.
Exactly. So yeah, so we have reviewed Oracle Gmentra, Infor Nexus, if my recollection is right, QAD. I think we have reviewed them more from the overarching perspective. They do have a supply chain suite, which is sort of baked as part of ERP suite. I don't know if they will ever sell to pure play retail. That might be questionable because I don't think they are necessarily in the retail business. They do target some of the retail businesses, but I don't know if they will go for the pure play retail. Then you have the Dassault Systems, which is the IQMS system. They are primarily present in the plastics space, and I don't know if they will target the pure play retail as well. So they are going to have the supply chain suite that is sort of kind of part of ERP. It is going to have a lot of capabilities, but is it true supply chain suite? That might be questionable. Then you have the other competitors that are going to be more from the supply chain suite perspective. So E2 Open is probably the most comprehensive of all, in having all of those three pillars that I have mentioned from the supply chain suite perspective, which is your planning, execution, as well as your network. Blue Yonder is going to have very, very, very deep capabilities in terms of their execution as well as planning. They are enhancing and upgrading their capabilities for the network as well, but for the most part, they are relying on the third party network. And then you have Connexus, which is they have network plus analytics, and then Anaplan takes a very different approach. So Anaplan is doing all of the analytics connected, so that's a very different perspective. So in my mind, that would be more of the analytics suite that I don't think we have touched so far. So there are going to be three different suites. So one is your ERP suite, the second is going to be your supply chain suite, the third is going to be your analytics suite. So now in your Venn diagram, whichever component you need and where you need them from, you need to sort of make that decision. How many different suites are you going to be using, or are you going to be adding some of those best of breed component as part of your architecture? But Anaplan would fall under that whole analytics suite because they are targeting pretty much every single analytic need that is going to be your finance, your supply chain, your HR, workforce, a lot of other solutions. For example, Relics might be able to do a little bit of workforce, but they don't do workforce for the entire organization. So these guys are taking slightly more enterprise centric approach for the analytics suite. Tools Group is a very interesting candidate as well. So Tools Group is going to be slightly more, they would be the closest competitor, I would say, for Logility. But Logility might be slightly bigger solution. They are targeting slightly bigger logos compared to Tools Group. Tools Group is a smaller solution targeting smaller companies. SAP IBP is probably going to be, they are probably going to have, if you sort of create the superset of everything that you have so far, they are going to have pretty much everything, but they might not be as deep in their network as well as their execution, I would say. I don't think they're going to have as strong WMS, etc. That's where companies use either Manhattan or Blue Yonder, some of those systems. O9 solution is going to be very analytics. That is SNOP, but that is the enterprise grade SNOP compared to your mid-market centric SNOP. So O9 is probably going to be competitor, but again, O9 is a much bigger solution in terms of size compared to your Logility. One of the unique layer that you have with Logility, and they have a patent for this as well, and that is going to be overall in terms of doing the analytics at the attribute level. And in general, that is a very heavy lift. Okay, the companies that might claim that they are really good at retail, they are really good at chemicals, they will generally struggle in those industries because having those attributes is a much heavier lift. In general, when you look at all of these supply chain suites and the ones we have reviewed so far, everyone is sort of claiming that they all can do retail, which is very interesting because retail is going to have very deep functionality. There are some that win a lot more in retail space, but in general, retail is where you are going to have a lot more attributes with your inventory, and you need to plan accordingly. So there are always layers in terms of where everybody is going to be successful, but these guys are going to be successful in slightly more complex industries where you are going to have very complex inventory, the matrix type of inventory. That's where these guys really shine, and that's why you will see a lot more logos in chemicals and pharma. In general, from the product data perspective, these industries are very complex compared to the other industries. So chemical,
much more high volume retail, I'm assuming. Is that right?
now, high volume retail, I would think that probably Manhattan does a lot. I don't know if these guys are doing a lot of grocery, to be completely honest. I don't think
Okay.
I've seen a lot
I
of
was thinking
logos.
retail stores, like Purdy's or somebody like that.
In my
No?
mind, that would not fall under grocery. In my mind, that would fall under CPG. The reason for that is because grocery, the way you buy and plan, and Dave might have a lot more experience there, but for the most part, in grocery, the biggest challenge that you have is number one, shelf life. And
Yes.
number two is going to be that you are sort of buying in weight. So you are sort of filling these containers in your grocery store. And grocery also contains some of the produce, right? So you are also going to have that challenge because that's going to have a very different inventory cycle, replenishment cycle. So grocery in general is a very different business. I don't know how many solutions will feel comfortable selling to grocery.
I understand. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a very penny business. That is number one. The margins are
It
very
is.
slim. Yeah, and then yeah, obviously it's very challenging as well. It's not easy. Okay, so here I would think that this is going to be slightly more complex inventory, more from the medical device, pharma, apparel has very complex inventory as well. The way they plan, the way they design, the way they restock. Apparel is a very different. Anything that is going to be related to style. So
By
that's
style color.
exactly exact. So Andy, the store that you are going to have next to Per D is probably the right candidate for these guys, to be completely honest.
Yeah, okay, now I got you.
Because that's where you're going to have. So next to chocolate, I think what you're going to have is the dresses. uh,
Yeah, or have to buy new clothes.
exactly. That is probably the best place, right?
That's right. That's
to
right.
build your store. Okay. So yeah, so those are some of the industries. Now, overall, from their solution footprint perspective, the way they are branding or marketing this is they are saying concept to customer, which is a very interesting perspective. And yes, a lot of supply chain solutions, I would think that they will position themselves as concept to customer, because you are literally starting from your design, then you are doing your merchandising, and then you have planning, then you are doing a little bit of procurement in your design phase as well. You are doing a little bit of vendor collaboration, and once you are satisfied, then you are probably going to, and you might have quality compliance as well, by the way, in that whole cycle. And then finally, you are probably going to push it to production. Let's say if your SKUs are going to be formalized. In some cases, let's say if you have very custom products, then you might not have formalized SKUs. So for each of them, you have to go through the same process. And this is going to be the whole product development, product management, the R&D process. I think that's where these guys fit a lot more. So the ERP lenses are going to be slightly different, because they are living in that execution world. But even that execution is going to be slightly different, because you are looking at more of the production manufacturing. That's where sort of the ERP lenses live. So here you are talking about supply chain master data management. That could be tricky to read. So supply chain could mean a lot of different things. A lot of solutions are going to do supply chain in your company. But this is going to be more from the R&D perspective, from merchandising, planning. Recommendation is probably the right word that Andy uses a lot to describe these solutions. So here you are looking at advanced analytics. So you are obviously going to have your demand optimization. You are going to have inventory optimization. But again, this optimization is more from the recommendation perspective. It is not supposed to be the intraday planning that you would do inside your ERP system. And then you have your suppliers. So obviously, suppliers are going to live here, but that is not the true state of your suppliers, because your main suppliers are probably going to live inside your ERP. So the only suppliers that you're going to have here are probably going to be the ones that are sort of collaborating with you in that R&D phase, in that design phase. You are not going to have all of them. So sometimes it could be very tricky how you are going to build the architecture, because obviously the SNOP layer is going to have the holistic supply chain perspective. But then do you create sort of the subset for ERP, or would you create superset? So these are all design considerations in terms of which solution is going to have the higher authority, I would say, in that handshake, and what is going to be the boundaries for each of the solution. And then you have the retail optimization, and that's where I would think that they are trying to position it as that whole merchandising planning layer. That's where you would have, and maybe pricing optimization as well. That's how they are commercializing. Quality compliance is very unique. So 90% of the retail SNOP solutions that you're going to find in the market, they might not have quality and compliance process. And that's why these guys are able to do business in your chemicals, pharma, to some extent food as well, Andy. But I mean, again, if that food is going to have slightly more complex inventory, not just bunch of chocolates. I don't know if chocolates follow the same planning process that some of the other food items may follow, that are going to be slightly more pharma or nutraceuticals, or supplements. They might have slightly more complex process. They are saying product lifecycle management. And if you want to read that, then that would read almost like PLM. uh,
Well, yeah.
this is not PLM, guys.
Oh no, what is it?
So this is going to be product lifecycle management, more from the supply chain perspective, but this is not your
Oh,
engineering PLM.
okay. So it's the backwards and forwards through the supply chain, basically.
So there are
The
layers.
genealogy.
Well, so there are always layers, with these things. So in these industries, I don't think you are going to have the engineering centric PLM, and I think that's where the
No.
real distinction is. So these guys will not be selling to those industries where your QADs or IQMS is going to be present, and they are going to have the real engineering centric PLM, right? Even in four, for that matter. Here, they don't necessarily have the engineering centric PLM, but when you are going to read, you are going to feel, okay, I have PLM. Let's go for it.
Right.
You
Are
know,
there many ERPs that are designed for manufacturers that actually have PLM built in? Usually it's a third party product, right?
so depending upon,
Engineering PLM, I mean.
yeah, I mean, if you go to Salesforce or Rootstock, then they'll tell you that, I mean, they have a PLM
Yeah.
built on the Salesforce platform,
Right.
but engineers, in my experience, they are going to absolutely hate it,
Right.
because, the Salesforce interface is not very engineering friendly, the kind of screens they like to see, to be completely honest. So depending upon what was the mode of acquisition for that capability or for that product, right? So in general, the PLM product, that the way its design is, the way the architecture is for a PLM product, it's very different from your ERP, centric products. So 90% of the ERP companies that have PLM capabilities, they acquired a PLM product, okay, and they simply integrated, as part of the suite. So they
Right.
acquired ERP. No, sometimes they acquired ERP, sometimes they had ERP, but then they kept acquiring all of these capabilities, and they got an iPaaS, and now they are, selling it as more of the integrated solution. So that's how they all got the PLM capability. But anybody who's selling a suite, and that suite is going to require a PLM. So depending upon the industry, that's why the industry and the product type matters a lot, right? So in the engineering centric industries, your PLM is probably going to be your critical success factor. I don't know how you can utilize an ERP without a real PLM and without real handshake between your PLM and ERP.
PLM it's like buying an ERP almost for engineers, right? It's a complex implementation on its own.
That's a very complex implementation, and engineers in general, the good ones, are very fussy.
They're very fussy.
um,
Dave knows all about that.
Yeah, I mean, but back to your point, Sam, like where I've seen that fail is the handshake between the PLM and the ERP. And it's not just the source of truth, but how those processes flow in both directions. And it becomes really challenging in a larger organization because you've got so many people that are involved in that. And back to your other point, you've got different sets of, kind of personalities and boundaries that you're trying to navigate with that. It becomes really complex really quickly. And there's not, like all of this stuff, right? It's not just a black and white answer. There's a lot of gray and a lot of conversation around terminology
yeah,
and process execution and what's the desired output, right? Like that's the ultimate that
That's
we're
the key.
seeking. But how do we get to that within that process flow? Because
yeah,
again, it gets really complicated. What are we trying to do? Where are
yeah,
we trying to control, revisions,
yeah,
parts? How does that flow to the item master? How does that flow out to the
yeah,
branch? How does, that interact with
yeah.
procurement and supply chain, like vendor management, right? Like you just start adding in all of these layers. And before we know it, we're back at the same place we started.
It's a
Yeah,
full ERP. Yeah.
yeah, and guys, just to set the tone for the engineering centric organizations, I mean, you are looking at people like Elon Musk. There is not much of the negotiation when you are dealing with people like Elon Musk. Okay, so that's how their ERP selection is. It's going to be very engineering heavy. The only personality that matters is engineer, right?
That's right.
And if you don't please them, if you don't satisfy them, they are out. And if they are out, your company is out. Because
But in
you
this case, PLM or product lifecycle management is to do with supply chain only.
this is very different. In this particular case, you are not going to have the engineering centric PLM. This is very different PLM in general. I don't think they are going to have the real PLM capability. They are simply doing PLM more from the design perspective in this particular space, especially when you compare apparel and food. They both are going to have very different product management processes. Okay, for food, not only you are planning for food, but you are also planning for packaging. For apparel, it's different because you are literally working with the designers, and these designers are some of the models, to be completely honest. Uh, you hire them because they are designing all of these dresses, and they are equally fussy as well, by the way. They are not easy to work with. If they don't feel that you are the company they should be working for, they are out. I mean, they don't even care for money as much. So for them, and that's why it becomes very, very, very hard to please these guys, because they are going to have their favorite tools, the tools that they are going to use to be able to design. And if you cannot sort of integrate the processes, then you are probably going to have the challenges. But here, overall, when you look at this product lifecycle management, I think they are just doing the basic version of product lifecycle management. They are not doing the real PLM. That is going to be more from the product management processes, where you are going to use that to manage your products versions. And sometimes that integration could be very tricky as well. How you are going to manage the life cycle of this versus the other PLM tool. You need to plan that, and satisfying everybody in the organization. So yeah, so it's very, very, very interesting. And then you are going to have the sourcing management as well, as part of this layer, and then demand optimization. So again, you have to please a lot of egos, and sometimes architecture could be all over the place, just pleasing those egos, to be completely honest. And every industry is going to have very, very, very different problems. Okay, I don't have anything else I may be able to touch here. Okay, just one more point, I guess. So in this particular case, one thing that we have not touched is your trade promotions planning. So that's if you review their documentation material, you're never going to find something like trade promotions. And that's why I feel that these guys are not necessarily positioned for the hardcore retail or retail plus manufacturer or brands, because you would require those capabilities. So for pure play retail, these guys might not be the best fit. They are going to be slightly better fit for industries such as your chemical, pharma, where you are going to have quality compliance, because the other retail solutions, they are probably not going to have all of that. So it's a very unique solution in general, and that's why they are able to target industries such as your chemical, pharma, med device. Those are going to be slightly different industries compared to the other solutions that are going to be deeper in your trade promotions planning. For example, we saw that with Oracle, SAP, even they were really deep into that. They also have a little iPaaS. Everybody has bought, an iPaaS solution, and they have integrated. So everybody is trying to claim that they want to be that data hub. They can connect with pretty much everybody in the market, but I don't know how many iPaases you are going to have in your architecture. But this iPaaS is really to be able to communicate with this solution. That's why they had to sell as part of the package. So they bought that and integrated so that they can integrate with any of the ERPs. I'll keep going here. Okay, so here we have some more comments. So this is the supply chain management and the IT consulting they still have. This screenshot is coming from their financial statements. So they are still doing the information technology consulting, which is IT consulting. That's how they have bucketed the and it reads, the SEM software business is our core market. That's how they are positioning themselves. We also offer technology staffing and consulting services, which would fall under that professional services. I don't think they have a lot of VARs. For the most part, they are going to be direct, from the sales perspective. Through our wholly owned subsidiary, the Proven Method Incorporation is the IT consulting segment, and we continue to provide limited services to our legacy ERP clients included in the other segments. We serve approximately more than 800 clients located in approximately 80 countries. They are probably positioned for that mid market, upper mid market, I would say. So 800 clients is probably a decent figure, I would say. It's not a lot, but for SNOP solution, I don't know how much can you expect. Largely concentrated. So they are decent vendor. I mean, you don't have to worry about their viability as such. They have been in the market for a very long time. And this is a decent client base. Largely concentrated within key vertical markets, including apparel and other soft goods. But I don't know how competitive they are going to be in the apparel market, to be completely honest. Because you have other big guns that are targeting apparel market. Especially, I would think Manhattan has a big presence there. You have some more, and sometimes they could be POS plus your SNOV platform. So I don't know. That could be tricky as well. In which solution do you want to go for? Then you have food and beverage, CPG, consumer durable goods, wholesale distribution, specialty chemical, and other process manufacturing. Our software and services are marketed and sold through a direct sales team as well as an indirect VAR channel. but I don't think they have a lot. They have listed their competitors, so this is very similar to what we have spoken about. So they are talking about large ERP application software vendors such as SAP, Oracle, Infor. One thing that you are going to notice in this argument is they have not included Microsoft. And if you remember SAP presentation, we saw that even Microsoft uses SAP IBP because they don't have the SNOP platform. SNOP platform, especially if that is going to be integrated with the ERP. So Microsoft does not necessarily have the core suite functionality compared to the other larger vendors. And that's why they are going to have a lot more SNOP platforms that are sort of the add-ons. So Microsoft takes a very different approach in general, even though you are going to feel that they all have very similar capabilities, comparable capabilities. But SAP, Oracle, and Infor are going to be a lot more comparable than your Microsoft. So then they are saying each of which offers sophisticated ERP software that currently or may in the future incorporate supply chain management. So they are talking about supply chain management, but what they mean here is that supply chain suite, which has slightly different architecture than your core ERP layer, even though ERP vendors, every one of them is going to argue that they all have very deep supply chain capabilities, but the capabilities that they have is very different, because here you are looking at more of the recommendation, future, past, historical data. The intent of ERP is not necessarily that. And here they are talking about advanced supply chain planning and scheduling, and there could be layers to that as well. Here the APS functionality that you have, this is going to be more of the recommendation. The APS that is going to be included with your ERP is slightly more transactional. That is your intraday planning. This is not supposed to be your overarching planning that you are doing. So there are always layers to these terms. So pay attention, guys. Then you have warehouse management, transportation, collaboration, and SNOP software components. So again, they are talking about only 3 at this point of time, and that is right. I don't think anybody else has as deep capabilities, including vendors as large as your Appicore and IFS. They are not going to be as strong with their suite. 2 vendors that they have not mentioned, I would think, is number 1 IQMS and number 2 QAD. They are going to be far closer competitors to these guys than just these 3.
So what were you saying about IFS not being, sorry?
So IFS is not going to have as a strong suite, compared to your SAP, Oracle, Infor, IQMS, as well as your QAD. These 5 are going to have far deeper suite capabilities from the supply chain perspective. And if you look at the industries that IFS targets, they don't necessarily target supply chain centric industries, because that's not their sweet spot. Okay, they are going to target more of the project centric industries, asset centric industries. They don't necessarily have the real use case for supply chain there, to be completely honest. Even though you might find IFS in some distribution organizations as well, just because the salesperson sold, they all feel that ERP capabilities are similar. So and depending upon which part or which segment you are buying it for, sometimes you might be able to use it, but that's not their core target market. And that's how these suites are constructed. So again, from the IFS perspective, they don't necessarily have, as part of, like, the whole supply chain suite is not included as part of IFS. They have very different suite. That suite is going to be very different, which is, I would call that as more of the engineering suite or the MES suite. That's a very different suite than, and these guys are, even though they are going to claim that they have MES as well, but again, the MES is not going to be as deep as what IFS is going to have, because they are targeting the whole CAD, and very heavy engineering centric organization. They don't care for supply chain. They are building very expensive machines.
And they're mostly purchasing direct to the projects.
If you are talking about $5 million business, not $5 billion business. IFS target market is not necessarily $5 million business. It's no. 5 billion with a B.
That's right.
Exactly. So they are going to have very different inventory problems, inventory challenges. Yeah. Okay. So here they have some more comments here. So vendors focusing on the supply chain application software market, including but not limited to Blue Yonder. We have already identified them. O9 Solutions, Connexus, OM Partners. So sometimes you're going to find all of these SNOP solutions integrated with a lot of different solutions. For example, Microsoft is the most popular guy out there. Okay, so because everybody's targeting Microsoft, because Microsoft is the only vendor that does not have supply chain suite. Everybody else, and these guys are actually going to push for Microsoft, because as soon as they are going to introduce either QAD, IQMS, they are going to be out. Even Infor,
they're out.
Exactly. So there's a lot of politics in general in the enterprise software space. So you need to really figure out, okay, where the alliances are and who sort of goes together in the market together. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of challenges with your implementation, with your negotiation. Okay, so we have some more. They are talking about business application software vendors that may broaden their product offerings by internally developing, acquiring, or partnering with independent developers of supply chain management software. So this is one trend that we had seen in the supply chain space, that you have the real pure play supply chain consulting firms. They all have developed their supply chain suite because they have to survive, right? So they are creating their own supply chain suites as well. So humongous competition, I would say. And then obviously you are competing with the internal development efforts as well. Some people are simply thinking that they can build all of this. Good luck. Okay, now some more comments here. So this is coming from 2014. I think this is one of the press releases. So this is probably the story related to their acquisition. So in this particular case, and again, 2014, they acquired a lot of capabilities from the retail perspective. So this is the acquisition of privately held MID Retail Incorporation, the Indianapolis-based provider of retail allocation and merchandise planning solutions. So they do have retail capabilities, and for any retail organization, the allocation and merchandise planning is probably going to be fairly critical. Now, they might not have as deep capabilities for the pure play retail. They might have some capabilities because they have to please their chemicals customers, the pharma customers. So they require a little bit of allocation, merchandise planning, but the merchandise planning that other pure play retailers are going to require may be very, very, very different. So again, look at the product data model and identify, okay, what is their sweet spot, where do they sell most, and that's where you are going to have much higher chances of success with this particular product or any product for that matter. So again, the micro industry and the product design matters a lot for the success of the implementation. Then they are talking about MID Retail's award-winning technology helps retailers synchronize merchandise financial plans with customer demand at each retail location to boost in-stock performance, profitably grow their business, allocate merchandise, and deliver. And these are all of the use cases for retail-centric businesses. They are talking about that. But again, I don't know how deep they are going to be in those capabilities. But I mean, every single solution, regardless of whether you are going to look at supply chain suite or ERP, they all grew through a lot of acquisition. This has been a journey over the period of time. They acquired a lot of capabilities, and now they are calling themselves as some sort of suite, either your ERP suite, supply chain suite. But these every single suite, is very, very, very different the way they are constructed. Okay, now 2015, so 1 year ahead. So here, this is the patent that I was talking about. So in this particular case, they are talking about the product family inventory replenishment system using a composite product mix framework. So if they have a patent in this, then obviously they are going to have much unique capabilities for these industries that other solutions are not going to have. So, and that's why these guys are able to do a lot more business in chemical pharma, because they have much more complex inventory. And this complex inventory you are probably going to find with vendors such as your Apicor. They do a lot of business in the complex inventory space. Okay, Infor Visual was known for very complex inventory. Okay, even today, I mean, they have they can handle industries that are going to have very complex inventory. Infor M3, different perspective, but they also deal with very complex inventory, from the planning perspective. What else am I missing here? The newer solutions for which one is that? Advantive, right? Advantive is the new ERP company that they have created. They are also dealing with very complex inventory space. Fastener industry, for example, is going to be very complex too. Overall, from the product inventory, the kind of layers you are going to have in your inventory. Supply chain solutions, traditionally build demand curves based on two factors. It's your demand forecast and the customer orders, which generate, adequate curves for demand planning and may result in higher inventory for source goods. So that's how they are sort of solving this problem. So is able to develop the composite curves that integrate your demand, customer orders, and inventory. So again, in my mind, the way I'm looking at this is, generally you were doing sort of at the aggregate level, but now you are able to do at, you are sort of able to combine and balance both of those perspectives when you are going to look at the schedule perspective versus the planning perspective. These two are two completely different perspectives that you need to maintain, and these two are going to have very different requirements in terms of what kind of layers you are going to require in each of those. So it reads right now is, when a minimum is required by a supplier, companies will proportionally increase the replenishment order to meet the minimum. For many companies, this approach can and has led to inflated inventory, which is right. And then companies are able to take advantage with this solution of composite curves that look at history and multiple attributes. And attributes is the keyword that you should be paying attention to satisfy the supplier minimum requirement to balance inventory with your future demand. And supply orders can now be planned at the aggregate level while they are scheduled at the detail level. If you are going to do planning at the detail level, sometimes the workload is going to be so much that your system might not be able to handle. So you are doing this at the aggregate level, but you are scheduling at the detail level. In my mind, I think the majority of the retail solutions should be able to handle this, but there are always layers to that. Yeah, so they have specifically worded that you're looking at style, size and color, but that is very common with any of the supply chain solutions. 90% of them are targeting retail, so they are going to have these capabilities. Even tools as small as Relax or Tools Group, I think they had fairly deep capabilities, and they could handle a lot of volume, from the volume perspective, like millions and millions of store SKU combination. But now, along with your store and SKU, you're also combining your style, size, color. And for chemical industry, you are going to have a lot more, not just three or four. So you're looking at a lot of cubes overall. Okay, if you don't have any comments, I'll keep going here. Now we are in 2016. So this is probably the acquisition for that iPass solution that they have acquired. So here they are saying, winning technology speeds and simplifies the complex integration of supply chain and ERP solutions through a proven template-based approach. But again, the template-based approach is never going to work. Okay, for SNOP solutions, that might be okay, to be completely honest, because it's planning. It's not as critical as your transactions, to be completely honest. It's not going to break anything. Even if your integration does not work, let's say, you can always sort of find workaround. Again, recommendation, planning, study, it's not as critical as you are processing your transactions. That's where the real challenge is, when you are going to break those. So in this particular case, the integration is not as critical in general. Then they are talking about quickly integrating the rich transaction and master data from their enterprise systems with their Logility, Voyager, solutions. Now they are saying, while providing advanced capabilities for error checking, data validation, transformation. That's a very boilerplate language for any of the iPass capabilities. So they are saying they have all of that. But again, every single ERP system or supply chain suite, if they have acquired an iPass solution, they are probably going to have these capabilities. They are able to do some of the things. For example, let's say if you look at net change management and distributed processing, synchronizes extremely high SKU volume in less time by only exchanging data that has changed since the last update. But again, I don't think the 90% of the solutions are probably going to be able to handle this, if they are able to pull off that kind of workload. So I don't know if this is really unique, but they are saying that they can do net change. That should be very common for 90% of the solutions. Okay, 2023. So they are saying that they have announced some of the manufacturing capabilities. So initially, I guess they were not doing manufacturing, but now they are in manufacturing. So now this is going to be very similar to your Connexus. They have very deep manufacturing capabilities. And generally, manufacturing planning is very different, because when you are going to be doing planning of your dependent demand, independent demand, the whole bomb, that's a very different planning than planning just at the SKU level. So here seems like they have acquired those capabilities as well. So capabilities such as your synchronous scheduling and flexible scripts are designed to further maximize production effectiveness. And they are saying that needs in a wide range of industries, including consumer goods, food and beverage, and industrial durables. In general, the kind of bombs that you're going to have in these industries, consumer goods, F&B, and industrial durables. These are very commoditized products, very, very, very small. The bombs are going to be like super small as well, tiny. Maybe you have four materials going in, uh, maybe two steps, right? I mean, that's how lean their bombs are going to be. So again, this is not the same as engineering bomb, very complex machinery. So those are very, very, very different, capabilities. So here, even though these guys are able to claim the manufacturing optimization capabilities, their needs are going to be very light overall. So the view that you are looking at here is going to be maybe NetSuite, the kind of products that NetSuite is able to handle, compared to other slightly more sophisticated manufacturing products. Yeah. So here they have, coined one of the term which is very interesting, and this whole synchronous scheduling. And synchronous scheduling is a real problem. In fact, I mean, in these industries, especially if you look at industries such as your bakery, okay, 90% of the ERP systems really struggle in bakery business. It's that complex. The reason for that is synchronous scheduling, right? So they have coined the right term, that they are able to do something there, but again, they are not necessarily doing the real planning on your production floor. The only thing they are doing is just the recommendation. Okay, so that's where the real layer is. So I don't know how many systems can really do synchronous scheduling, from the planning perspective. You will need to find a lot of workaround, but seems like these guys have that capability from the recommendation perspective. And that's where, for the food and beverage, I think this is going to be super critical for bakery, etc. And they must be doing really well there. I don't know others if other solutions are going to have the same capabilities. So again, there are always layers, in terms of the product design, where these guys are going to shine. I don't have anything else on this one. Okay, but I don't think we have seen a synchronous scheduling anywhere so far. I don't know if QAD would target any industries where you are going to require that, because they are not targeting probably bakery type industries. So yeah, this is probably very unique to these guys. So this is a case study. So they are talking about they provided the integration planning platform, and here you are looking at what Continental Mills is the company. So Mills is a again very interesting business model. They are saying each division likes to have a forecast at a different level. That's going to be a challenge as well, because if you are going to have the model or the cube that only plans at one level, then obviously that's going to be a challenge, especially if everybody's looking at different parameters, in terms of how they plan, depending upon this problem also exists in the seasonal businesses, because depending upon, I think we saw this for one of the bookstore example, that the planning differs so much because of the taste and preferences of your consumers from one location to the next. So, but I mean, again, here you are going to have very different problems, because you are also looking at manufacturing, not just retail. So here they are saying each division likes to forecast at a different level, provides a huge advantage with a flexible solution that allows all four divisions to manage their business in their own way, while maintaining a single hierarchical structure that allows roll up to a comprehensive corporate view. And again, this is going to be more of the planning roll up, not necessarily the real financial roll up, that is going to be relevant from the transaction perspective. Yeah, the other comments are fairly similar to what we have seen with the other solutions, so I'm probably not going to touch on those. Let's keep rolling here. So here also, so again, food and bakery type of business, Mills, they are going to have very different requirements, and that's why they are doing really well in this particular space. So here they are saying Service Foods is one of the New Zealand's largest family owned and operated food service distributors. Okay, and they are importing products from 20 countries, and when they are going to import, there's going to be a little product management process that they have to maintain, to be able to work with these suppliers. You are going to have a little supplier collaboration process during the R&D phase, because in general, the food and beverage business, they are very heavy in research, because consumer preferences are changing. You always need to innovate, you always need to launch new taste preferences. So you are going to have all of those challenges, and that's why the whole PLM piece matters, that need to reside inside your supply chain suite, so that you can move fast with your product management process. Yeah, and they have a little DSD business model, which is a very interesting business model as well. So they are supplying to your restaurants, bakeries, cafes, catering businesses, and supermarkets. Okay, so they are saying provide a global overview of company performance to roughly what 12,000 SKUs, which is a lot. Okay, if you multiply this with, I don't know how many locations. So they have what they are present in roughly what 20 countries, and we don't have number for location. If we multiply just this, that itself is going to be a big number. And planning the queue for that, and then finally all of the attributes that you're going to have, that's a humongous data set. And they're refreshing 8 times daily. Can you believe this? That's on your real time. This, but again, this is going to be just the recommendation. Even if they are, refreshing this 8 times daily. But again, this is not meant to be the whole execution engine. You're still going to feed this to your MRP, which is going to be part of your ERP.
You suppose that's just inventory levels, Sam? What do you suppose is refreshing 8 times a day? I'm a bit perplexed by that comment.
Yeah. So they do the safety stock. They might do lead times depending upon what you are feeding from your planning and what you are planning for. The lead time could be segmented in multiple buckets. You could have transportation lead time depending upon if you are keeping your transportation data inside your supply chain suite as well. So any of the variables that need to be forecasted in your ERP model need to come from here. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So here, yeah, and they are able to do a lot of analysis. For example, let's say if somebody opens an account, 20 new accounts, and they are never placing the order, so they are doing a little sales analysis. And this is where the real power is in doing that sales analysis, in identifying the right opportunities and qualifying them, and really chasing after those opportunities, creating policies that are going to be really effective from your sales operations planning perspective. That's where the real power is of these products. Okay, so now this is a very interesting business as well. So this is your intertape polymer group. So this is going to be the intersection of what this is almost like your chemical manufacturing, a little bit of plastic, I guess, right?
Process, yeah.
The process, exactly. But I mean, process could mean a lot of different things as well, right? So this is polymer, slightly more chemical, plastic centric, business processes. So they are saying they implemented, again, I don't think we have seen these logos with any other solutions. They're very, very, very unique in their capabilities. So they are doing demand planning to establish a forecast strategy for make to stock products, align build to order product lead times, and again, make to stock, lead to order, build to order. They are going to have very different planning cycles in general. And sometimes you use these tools to be able to identify, okay, which ones need to be your make to stock versus which can be your build to order. The planning is very, very, very different. We have seen companies mixing them up, and then the inventory is all over the place. They lose a lot of money because of this factor. Then they are saying minimize order quantities and identify products and business units that were out of scope. With Logility IPG quickly created a multi-echelon forecast that empowered flexible analysis and scenario-based planning by products, channels, geography, and financial metrics, which is very similar to any other SNOP solutions that we have seen. But the unique layers that these guys have is that the whole synchronous scheduling, that is number one, and number two, for these industries they have very unique layers. Yeah, so they are able to do this as well. So again, I think Canaxis will be able to do this too. But for these industries, when you are going to get into the depth of either inventory or the synchronous planning, I think that's where they are going to be really, really strong.
The last sentence of the paragraph on the right, pretty interesting. They've achieved 13 million year-over-year reduction in inventory while still maintaining a 95% fill rate. That's a pretty good mix.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the power is of these tools, to be completely honest. I mean, they have real business value, and much easier to install than the other transactional systems such as your ERP, WMS, TMS. They are much harder to implement. Okay, so 256 point right now. I think we should stop. We have 4 people comments. Dave, do you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to kind of kick things off. I mean, I've seen this in the market before, this particular solution. It was in medical device business. So, all of that fits for me. Back to your point, too, in terms of the value of a solution like this. But the value can only be derived once you understand, how it fits into your architecture and what processes you are executing, and what you're seeking from an output perspective. And I think that's always the challenge, right? Like that's always the challenge. No matter, fill in whatever solution you want, and that will always be the challenge. Is bringing people together, understanding what people are talking about as they're saying, different terms. And that's inside your organization and outside, right? And so I'll pause there because we got a bunch of comments, but I always love these because it just continues to highlight the importance of that same underlying conversation, regardless of what system or tool you're looking at. There will never be, there will always be a plethora of them to choose from. And that's not really the hardest part about this.
No, I would agree, Dave. I mean, we talk about evaluating these systems from forever now, and it's always, let the buyer beware. Devil's in the details. You never know what you're going to get, and so therefore talk to companies that are already using these tools that have similar expectations as you do. I mean, that comment about them renewing the databases or updating the data 8 times a day, obviously once an hour, that's as close to real time as you're going to get. And the number of transactions and the number of savings that one example was I was going to say hard to believe, but it's there right there in black and white, so it's probably legitimate.
Yeah. Great comment, Andy. Dave, any follow-ups?
No, I mean, I just agree, right? Like those two things are huge drivers of financial results. So at the end of the day, like, know what output you're seeking, right? Like a lot of times what I see, and not so much in terms of system selection or solution, right? But we kind of understand what problem it is we're trying to solve. And we may be attacking it from like a siloed perspective, not understanding like what's the impact for the rest of the business. So, if you're a business that holds a ton of inventory and you see those levels continue to grow while maybe your on-time shipments continue to slip, like a tool like this, right? And again, process execution is going to make a huge impact. And my only other follow-up is, of course, before you go down the path of identifying the tool, let's make sure we understand what process we need to execute and that we've optimized it before we look to implement, the next silver bullet. Because without that understanding, you're going to be spending a lot of your resources on, kind of learning while you're trying to run. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, great comments. Sasta, do you have anything to add by any chance?
No, I think Andy and Dave has pretty much covered everything.
Okay, amazing. Any other comments, guys, before we wrap?
No, just, that comment, like we said at the very end there, where they were saying 95% fill rate, where they reduced their inventory by half, quantity as SKUs. You think about that. 90. I mean, how much of that other 100% of inventory wasn't even selling? Was dead, probably.
Yep.
Like, talk about increasing profitability. That's crazy.
Yeah. It has a lot of value. Anything else, guys? All right, guys. So that's a wrap. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution or the vendor. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in today.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Sam. All the best.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.